What was this called again?
Hans. This one I can actually remember the name of.
Pistol Whipped.
Pistol.
All right.
Oh my god.
Hello.
I need some help with this one because
You need a lot of help with this one.
You need a lot of help.
I do. I need some help. Help me, Zach. Let's hear it.
We haven't introduced ourselves yet.
Hi, I'm Zach.
Hi, I'm Aaron. Did he just leave?
Is he just keeping us on the edge of our seats?
At the top of the
Is this
episode?
like a dramatic? Is there some buildup? Is there
A
a sequel
dramatic reveal?
It's been Seagal the whole time, disguised as Hans.
Now I don't want to say anything because I have nothing.
You can say your
I'm
name.
Hans.
You could say
Okay,
you're,
I'm
you go.
Hans.
you're Hans. Hi.
I didn't have anything funny or quippy.
Neither
just
did
me.
Seagal this whole movie.
Well, he did have that part when he referenced the lady. What it would be like if she had a. That was.
That was in like the really gross portion of the movie, though.
It was so bad.
Okay.
They
Let's
thought
slow
it was going to be funny, and it just
Okay.
wasn't.
Hold up.
Goes
Hold
through
up.
phases.
Let's slow down. Hold on. You're probably wondering how I found myself here. So let's start at the beginning.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
All right. This one was Pistol Whipped. And I went on a journey with this one. I kind of thought this one was pretty decent. And then it was kind of like trash, like the worst thing I've ever watched. And I wanted to turn it off. And then it was kind of decent again for a good chunk. And then it was like trash again for like another 2 minutes. And then it was pretty decent.
Okay,
But, yeah, at least at the end, it was like it entered into so dumb it was kind of funny again.
Yeah.
At the very end.
Surprisingly, I am on complete agreement with you, and I think that's part of why I struggled so much, because I couldn't decide. There were parts where I thought, man, this is surprisingly competent, and then that would swap right into a part that was just straight garbage. And it was this sort of emotional roller coaster of, am I going to agree with Zach on this? Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Zach on this. Wait, no, this is actually terrible, and I hate it. I couldn't decide. I couldn't make up my mind, and I'm just lost. And I think because of that, I was paying too much attention to that and not enough attention to the actual movie.
I actually think this is one that, like, if you hooked our brains up and we're like, to an EKG and we're like charting an EKG that's specifically designed just to like know how I feel about the movie I'm currently watching. I'm sure Harvard's researching that. Like, I think our brainwaves would like align pretty closely. Like, I think you could layer them on top of each other and like see that it's a match, like fingerprints.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Let's
run through this. In Pistol Whipped, the poster makes you think it's going to be a movie all about like gambling, casinos, and such. It is not. Get that out of your head right away. Steven Seagal has a gambling problem. You see him gamble for like one scene towards the beginning. That's basically how it materializes. That's worthy of an entire poster. We learn that this man gambles and he drinks and he's a divorced deadbeat father. He is Catholic in this one, or at least
we've come back
goes
to
Catholic
classic Seagal. Catholic Seagal. I will have some things to say later.
I'm
I'm
excited
glad.
for it. I figured you would.
All right, so I'm going to run through this plot and then I'm going to propose something crazy at the end. So hold on,
Oh,
hold on
do
to your
it.
butts. Get ready for that.
Let's just. I'm gonna shut up. Just do it quick. Let's get through it.
So
Go,
he's
go,
in
go.
confession, and I love it. This priest is just absolutely like roasting this man, and it's great. He's like, "You suck. You drink. You gamble all your money away. You can't even make it to the bed. You're sleeping on the couch. Your daughter doesn't love you. Your wife doesn't love you. But I know there's like good in you." And I'm like, up until that last part, I was 100% on board. So what happens is he owes money all over town. He has these markers. He keeps racking up casino debt, gambling debts. The old man, the character who's just known as the old man, who you may recognize if you're a fan of movies that take place in space where titular aliens cause trouble. He runs a secret organization. He runs a wanted organization. He's Morgan Freeman in this movie.
Oh my
He runs an
God.
organization where they kill bad people who manage to stay out of trouble because they have money and influence. And so he kind of like ropes Seagal into this. He says, I bought up all your gambling debts, so now you got to work for me. It's kind of like a weird deal that you have, but okay. So he just sends Seagal as like his hitman to take out bad dudes who deserve to die. He is assisted in this effort by...
The movie
Aaron?
Wanted came out the same year as Pistol Whip.
Okay, no. I'm going to get to that. Hold on. No spoilers.
I did not know this until right now.
I'm going to get to that. You have the same realization I did while watching this movie.
You've just unlocked a key. You just inserted a key into the keyhole in my brain.
No, this is like the nuclear sub. I got 2 keys for you, bro. Hold up. So he is sending Seagal on these hits. His first hit. Oh, he's assisted by his good friend Blue, Mr. Blue.
Blue,
Mr.
just Blue.
Blue. And I don't know about you. There's like a funny dynamic there where he's like, you want to kill this guy? This guy's a bad guy. And Seagal's like, okay, yeah, I want to kill this guy. And then Blue's like, but also he has a kid. And Seagal's like, ooh, now I don't want to kill him. Like, and he just like kind of messes with Seagal the whole time. Like being like, yeah, this dude's really bad, but also like you should feel guilty. While scouting out his first hits, he meets a woman who... We're talking about weird, random actresses and actors that you weren't expecting to show up in the Seagal movie. He meets Angelica Schuyler from the hit musical Hamilton at a bar. That was very unexpected. That took me by surprise. They talk for like 2 seconds and then go to bed together. Have like a very cringe-inducing sex scene. That is the first major dip. That's where I thought this is the worst thing I've ever seen. He kills the first guy. Actually goes pretty well, all things considered, considering his strategy is to walk into the place and just shoot him in the chest. That's his big strategy.
And anyone within like a 10-foot radius of him.
Yeah, and just anyone who kind of looks at him funny.
And he just leaves
in the way.
because he's a ghost.
And then just leaves.
Okay. No one knew. No one saw. No cameras.
Okay, wait. I want to talk about that, but I'm putting a pin on that. Got to get through this recap.
Hurry it up. Come on. Let's go.
Hey, I'm hurrying. I'm doing a good job.
You're only 10 minutes into the movie.
Hans, you've interrupted 3 times.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
Hans. He gets his next targets. He tries to connect with his daughter and it doesn't go well. He kind of has an altercation with Blue, but like where he's just slow to kill his next target, but he's still going to kill his next targets. There's some complications during this one. It doesn't go quite as smoothly. Like while Seagal's messing stuff up in there, a dude comes in from outside to try to kill Seagal, so Blue like saves him. And this is where we learn that I can't remember. I'm just gonna call it. This is the worst because I'm not even gonna call her by like her actress. I'm not Drea. Yeah, short for Drea.
Yeah.
The worst part is a lot of times in these movies I call them by like the name of their actor. I wasn't even gonna call her like Renee. I was gonna call her Angelica. Like from this completely unrelated musical years later. We learn that Drea is in on this too. She is a part. She is the Angelina Jolie of this wanted organization. But they're all kind of the teams forming. Then we find out that Seagal's next target is his ex-wife's new husband, who, okay, see, this is where it starts to get, this is where it really layers in on itself.
This is so
because
dumb.
The movie has reveals, and it reveals them very poorly, but it has reveals. So rather than going chronologically through the movie, what happens is before the movie started, Seagal was a police officer. His wife's new husband, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve is also a police officer and was like buddies with Seagal at this point. A bunch of money got stolen and Seagal's partner went missing, but Steve lied and gave Seagal an alibi. We come later to find out that but Seagal still gets fired. We come to find out, and that's when we started being like deadbeats, that Steve stole the money and killed Seagal's partner, but then still had like some kind of guilt because Seagal saved Steve's life at some point, so he lied about the alibi. So he like took the money and killed his partner, but like, and Seagal still got fired, but he made sure Seagal didn't like go to prison for it. And then he married Seagal's wife when Seagal got divorced because he became like a deadbeat.
Imagine that dynamic.
Well, they're still friends.
Yes.
They're still friends. Yes.
I don't know how, but
it's funny because even the wife complains. She's like, every time you come to talk, like every time you want to talk about like the daughter or something, you go and talk to Steve. You don't talk to me.
Oh, there's so much to say about that. I'm sorry. You just keep going.
So he's like, hey, Steve, you got to get out of here. Someone's trying to kill you. And Steve's like, is it you? And Skull's like, I hope it's not, which is a very funny response. Steve tries to go to the priest to get information on Seagal. The priest is like, I can't tell you that I'm a priest. And Steve is like, okay, that's all right. Thank you. And then just like slits the priest's throats. for no reason other than we learned he's the villain now, so now he's going to do villain stuff. Like, this happens a lot in movies when you'll have a character that's like, hey, I want to, like, save the orphans and, like, give kids free candy. And you're like, okay, I'm on board. And then they just start murdering innocent civilians.
up
So like,
until-
I'm not on board.
Up until this
Like, when
exact point, Steve was just kind of like a chill guy.
He's done
Yeah.
nothing wrong. And then he just randomly kills. And it's not like the priest gives him a reason to kill him. It's not like the priest is like, oh, I've actually learned you're bad. And I'm going to, like,
No.
he just kills the priest is like, okay, cool, we're good. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't give you more info. Bye. And then Steve just randomly kills him and then randomly kills another dude in the church. Just does a double homicide for no reason other than we learned he's the villain, so it's time for him to start doing villain stuff. And then Seagal goes to the crime scene where the priest was killed. Steve has him arrested, but then released because Steve's like, I want Seagal to lead me to Blue. He never references the old man. I don't even think he knows the old man exists, but he knows about Blue. And then Seagal and Blue are kind of having a square off, but then Steve comes in, so then like Seagal and Blue team up and like, drive away from get away from each other. And then they meet back up with Drea, and they set themselves up like at the funeral for the priest. There's a whole gunfight that breaks out with Drea, Blue, and okay, if I'm actually going to use their real names, I should use Seagal's. Matt Connor? Matt Connor is not.
Matt
Fine.
Conlon.
Matt Connor, as portrayed by Steven Seagal.
Matt Conlon.
Drea and Blue team up and take out Steve and his goons, who are also all dirty, corrupt cops
Sure.
who like know about the fact that they stole money and stuff. Like, they're all in on it. So that's that's why he was a target from the old man, because he is also like, using his influence and money to get out of trouble that he should be in. Old man was actually pretty much right the whole time. Actually, every target he picks is a good target. And they save and Steve takes Seagal's like daughter hostage at one point. Very bad stepfather. And they manage to save the day. They have big old gunfights, and they take out Steve and his goons.
Yeah, and then Becky, the daughter, watches as her dad burns her stepdad's corpse.
Explodes her stepdad's corpse. Yeah, Seagal says when Steve's laying on the ground, Seagal goes, do you want to be buried or cremated? And Steve says buried. So then Seagal shoves him into a car that's leaking gasoline and shoots it, so it just explodes in front of him.
It's a hearse.
As Becky, the girl, is like screaming and
watches.
crying and just like rolling on the ground, wailing.
And then
It's
Seagal's
kind of
like,
horrifying.
okay, and then Seagal's like praying in church, and Drea comes up and gives him like, the next target. Like, he's sticking with the wanted organization. He's part of the wanted team. Like, he's cool with it now. And then they show us his new house for some reason. Like, they do a whole 360
Same
view
house.
of like, they do it like,
It's
but
the same
he
house.
goes
It's
in the
been
house
for
and they
sale
do-
throughout the movie. He like takes the for sale sign out of the yard
Oh, that's what it is.
because
Yeah.
he
I thought he bought it.
got over his gambling and his gambling addiction and alcoholism in
I
like
was
a
just
couple
confused
days.
at the end. He
Uh,
gets rid of the for sale sign, which he has all this money from killing the targets, so
Yeah.
like whatever. But like I don't know why they did this whole like 360 view of the place.
Yeah, I thought
like,
that
for
was
some
weird.
like
reason.
you
too.
get to see the air conditioning unit outside. And
Yeah,
it's
Great.
weird.
okay. So 2 things.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 things.
One, as Aaron realized. So this movie came out earlier the same month. So when I first saw this poster, I thought this was going to be the movie 21 with Jim Sturgis and Kevin Spacey. I was like, oh, 21. Like, that's what it's reminding me
Yeah.
of. It had nothing to do with that. It had no 21 vibes. But I was just like, oh, like, gambling action, whatever. No. But it came out earlier the same month as 21, starring Jim Sturgis and Kevin Spacey. And it came out the same year, 3 months before Wanted.
Amazing.
So we've talked about this before, like how Seagal had a movie that was Taken, but came out 5 years before Taken, and like had a movie that came out before The Dark Knight Rises, and how The Dark Knight Rises ending. My man is like, he's honing, he's getting closer. Like, he's gonna release a movie that is a movie but like a week before that one. Like, he's honing his knife's edge. 2, while I'm watching this, did they secretly make a movie where the main character is like the Daredevil mixed with the Punisher? Did they his name is Matt and he's Catholic and he becomes a vigilante. The only difference is he very much kills. He's like the Punisher in his methods. Did they secretly make like a Daredevil movie? But Seagal says, no, I'm not doing this, not killing things. So they said, okay, you're kind of like if the Daredevil and like Punisher like mixed.
I believe Punisher is also Catholic.
Oh, he could be. I just know it factors a ton into like Matt.
Oh,
Murdock.
Matt Murdock. That's like his whole deal.
Every single thing is like, there's crime and I'm Catholic, and I want to stop crime and I'm Catholic. Like that's his whole existence.
That's why I love him so much.
Okay, but that is the recap of Pistol Whipped.
I'm gonna join in on you with the two things because I have two things. Probably the two biggest things that kept popping up in my mind. One, this man has racked up. They even said it's something like $1.5 million. It was well over $1 million.
Like $1.25 million, something like that.
Yeah. Well over $1 million in gambling debt to people that you don't want to be in debt to, all across town. But he has like a really nice house, just with a for sale sign out front. But a really nice house and a really nice car and a house full of really nice things. And that's not what you would expect for someone with a lot of gambling debt. Weird, but whatever. I guess he has to have a nice house for his daughter. Number two, every time he goes to see his ex-wife, I can only assume that she divorced him because of the gambling and the drinking and the debt. But she does not act like she wanted to get divorced.
No.
Every interaction he has with his ex-wife is confusing.
It's so confusing, and it's like
first of all,
borderline creepy.
He literally greets her with, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" Which is a terrible way to greet your ex-wife. I don't have much experience in that area, but I imagine a terrible way to greet your ex-wife. Every interaction I had confused me, but also every interaction he has with any woman is confusing and gross and creepy in this movie.
Just so strange. Oh, and I guess thing number three, but yeah, the stepdad, Steve, the bad guy, who's not the bad guy up until like a specific point when he is immediately turned into the bad guy. He's like a phenomenal stepdad, and his stepdaughter loves him, and loves her own father, and her father and her stepfather are both best friends. There's like this really great, like unusually great relationship with this whole family, and then he just like, oh, I guess I'm the villain now. So he kidnaps his own stepdaughter and holds her at gunpoint.
Yeah, like when Seagal's character is like too drunk to get out of bed on the day that he's supposed to have their daughter. Steve like covers for him and will like come up with excuses and like, hey, let's go get ice cream. Like, well, like I've seen a lot of situations where like the stepdad's like, yeah, your real dad sucks. We're gonna go.
But that's the thing, because he's still like he's covering for him, but also like giving her a good life.
Yeah,
he's just trying to give her as stable of a childhood as he can.
Yeah,
until all of a sudden he's just slitting priests' throats and kidnapping little girls. Like,
it's like they wanted this movie to be something entirely different. They wanted the bad guy to be the old man and to be blue, and they just at some point flipped that on its head and decided, oh no, we want to go the complete opposite direction, actually.
Well, and it's everyone really flips that way. So like I feel like what the movie wanted me to do when it reveals that Steve is the villain is like, what? No, I didn't see that coming.
What?
And what actually happened was what?
He's such a good guy.
No, what?
Steve.
Doesn't make any sense. Like I wasn't like shocked, but now all this stuff makes sense. I was shocked and thought, that is the dumbest thing I've ever... You had a villain. Just stick with... Blue was your villain the entire movie. And then so like when they're in the cemetery shootout and Blue's dying and Seagal like drags him behind one of the headstones and he's like, don't die, man, and Blue dies and plays like this sad music. I'm like, I don't care. This guy was a villain for the last 90% of this movie.
You're like, wait, we like Blue now?
Yeah, 85 minutes of this 90-minute movie, he was the villain.
Yeah.
Really, at best, they're forced together due to circumstance. They're not
they're not
friends.
allies. Like a couple scenes ago, Seagal was shooting at him for fun. Like they hate each other. Nothing changed.
Is why and this is why I kept flipping back and forth between like, wait a minute, this actually like it's not a good movie, but it seems it's okay. Like it's boring, but it's fine. And then you would flip to a state of, wait, this is complete garbage. What? Why are they doing this?
Well, also like production will flip between like kind of competent, pretty cool car chase to like a poker scene where everything's made of popsicle sticks and hot glue.
Okay, wait, should we talk about... Okay, I have a proposition. Should we go through and talk about all the things that are like surprisingly decent, then talk about the things that absolutely just suck?
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do it that way.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay. So like you said, there's actually we have not had like any good car chases in the Skull movie yet.
No.
There's a somewhat decent car chase in this one.
Yeah. Like there are power slides. There's like actual evading
in my notes I
things.
said this car chase actually isn't bad. What the hell's going on?
Well, okay, but to throw the wrench into that is that every now and again they'll do a cutaway to like see a reaction shot of them in there, and it's just them like sitting in front of a rear projection screen, like throwing themselves from side to side in a stationary car.
I didn't say it's great. It's I will say probably the best car chase we've had in any Seagal
It's
movie.
the best car chase, and
If that's
at least in a
whatever
very
that's worth.
long time. It was
Like there's at one point, it's even before the car chase. When Seagal's going after his second target, and like Blue's camped outside, and then he sees like the guy going in after Seagal, and he's like, "Ah, shoot, I got to go help him."
yeah.
Like as he's leaving, something that jumped out is like he's exiting the parking, like Blue's in this parking garage next door. He's like driving out of the parking garage, and there's like a hidden cut, like as he exits the garage, and it's like not invisible. Like if you're watching, you like may notice it, but like it struck me because like more than if there's no cut there at all. The fact that there's a hidden cut, I'm like, that's a thing good movies do. Like Parasite, the best movie ever, has like hidden cuts in it. That like I'm like, well, that's actually a technique. They did a technique. You're not supposed to do technique in these movies.
Somebody cared.
Somebody tried. What? Like I don't know. We need to look up who directed and edited this, because whoever wrote this, I have beef with you. But the director and editor were
The cinematographer was Richard Crudo, who was the cinematographer for American Pie.
Okay.
If we're still talking about
the scene of that kid in that pie had more chemistry than any scene with Seagal and Dre in this movie. Jeez.
Oh, he was also the cinematographer for Out of Reach, another Seagal movie. Bong Water. That's
Sure. And also the gunfight at the end, surprisingly competent.
So that's what I was just about to say.
surprisingly competent.
The mechanics of the gunfight and where people were at what time and
who's who.
and who's who. Maybe
it's
not
just
so
like
much.
it's just two teams of guys in suits.
Right, and they're all circling each other and nobody can hit anything even though they're not standing behind cover. Whatever.
Well, they can hit all those styrofoam headstones.
That's what I'm going to say though. The styrofoam headstones, whatever material they were actually made of, the special effects around the headstones exploding, not bad, pretty solid. I liked it. I actually took note of that. I thought we've seen special effects of much lower caliber as like the standard across all of these movies, and this scene, this big scene was actually done pretty well. Maybe not with the placement of the people and the acting of the people, but the special effects pretty solid.
In general, the effects throughout the whole movie pretty solid. Like he like shoots a guy and there's like a big gooey squib goes off, and I'm like, okay, that's what that should be.
Not bad.
Yeah, no, the gunfight at the end, it definitely like you said, it's just a bunch of dudes in suits just kind of vaguely running around shooting. It like does some things that make it harder to follow, like it breaks the 180 rule. So you'll have like two characters shooting at each other, but like shooting like both to the right of screen. Like it's not perfect, but I could generally like tell what is supposed to be going on, which you cannot always say about a gunfight in a Seagal movie.
Yep, very true.
It does certain like bold choices that aren't great and stick out jarringly, but are kind of fun. Like randomly it decides to get super dramatic out of nowhere, like when he orders like a rum and coke or Jack Daniels or something, and it does like super dramatic bartending, like where it's like the AMC ad where the ice just boom into the glass, and I'm like, that I don't really know why the drink it isn't important to the plot, like it didn't deserve that, but like randomly
well done.
Okay, it's trying a stylistic thing and it's not giving me a headache. Anytime these movies try to do something stylistic, they usually give me a headache
or like a seizure.
Yeah. There was a lot of camera work in this one that was actually sort of distinct to this movie in such a way that it was much better than the bulk of what we've seen previously. There were a couple shots of him, and this is it's so lame to point this out because this is like nothing. This is not important. This is not something that you would point out in like a major motion picture that you would see in the theaters today. But there were a couple shots of like when he would get into his Range Rover, because that's what he drove in this one. When he would get into his Range Rover to drive away, they would start the shot like at the taillights, and you would see the taillights, his reversing lights would go on, and he'd like back out of the driveway. And like the way they shot him leaving the house was well done. And it's so frustrating to me that this is what I'm pointing out, that this is what I think is well done, because that is like the lowest bar. But this movie does it, and the other movies we've seen have not.
Right.
Yeah,
So to me, that's impressive.
there were lots of like technique things that were done correctly, which
Yeah.
You
stood
could
out
tell,
to
like
me.
whoever made this like went to film school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
And that's
was
why I
kind of
kept.
incredible.
It all comes back to why I kept flip flopping between like, wait, is this actually okay versus is this garbage? Because there were so many of those little things that stood out. Like this doesn't belong in a Seagal movie. This is competent filmmaking. It was weird. It was very weird.
So
Yeah.
speaking of, Roel Riene, the director of this,
Uh-huh.
a Dutch film director. He's done a lot of like direct-to-video stuff, including The Marine. Interesting. He did the Scorpion King 3 Battle for Redemption. I didn't even... Wait, what? They made a direct-to-video third installment of the Scorpion King series, and it has Billy Zane and Ron Perlman in it?
Oh my gosh! What?
What a combo.
Right? Wait, is Ron Perlman the Scorpion King in this?
That would be awesome.
No, that can't be. Oh, okay, we're getting.
You know what's really funny?
My point is,
we've been struggling to come up, not struggling, but we've been kind of slow. We started this off by saying we're going to come up with all the good things that we found about this movie, and then contrast it with the bad things.
It's rough.
And all the three good things that we've come up with so far have had nothing to do with Seagal.
Oh, yeah, it's very unsurprising. And the next one I have also has nothing to do with Seagal. But also, the director of this, he directed, not the whole thing, but it looks like he directed some of the episodes of Halo, the Paramount Plus, like, Halo adaptation.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fun.
Still getting work.
Okay.
Good for you,
Yeah.
Roel.
So this movie, what it does not do well is, like, words and people talking at each other and people saying words at each other. It does those very badly, but the performances, the acting is actually pretty solid.
The acting is
the guy that plays Blue.
pretty solid.
Hold on, I'm gonna say their names. Paul Calderon as Blue, he does a pretty good job.
I think he's doing
Lance
an
Henriksen
impression
as the
though.
old man. What'd you say?
Paul Calderon, who plays Blue. It sounds like he's doing an impression of.
That's fine. It worked.
I mean, it's
That
a
was
good
okay.
impression.
It worked.
Yeah. Lance Henriksen is the old man. He does a pretty good job.
Yeah, he does a very good
Smalsbury
job.
as Dre Smalls. She's pretty solid.
Lydia Jordan,
Steve
who plays
Schwei-
Becky, the little girl, as far as child
Yeah.
actors go, solid.
Yeah.
Mark Elliott Wilson. Steve's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
Like all the performances except for one are
Steve
actually
and
like,
his eyebrows.
pretty
It was
Steve and his eyebrows. He did a really good job at playing the good guy, and then when he was told, "Oh wait, no, sorry, you
Yeah.
actually have to play the bad guy now," he did a reasonably good job of that
Yeah.
too.
versatility.
It's not
Like,
his
the
fault that the
performances are
script
good.
sucked.
Well,
the
so
stuff they're saying is awful.
I have a theory about
but they're
that.
delivering it with conviction.
I have a theory about that.
Let's
Here's my
go.
theory.
Theory?
So I think,
Alright.
and I'm not going to do this experiment, but if you went back and rewatched the movie, absolutely not. But if you did, I think you would find that all the scenes that don't contain Seagal, which in this movie is very few. He's in this
Yeah.
a lot. The last few movies
He's
we've talked
actually
about
in
this,
one.
like
He's actually the main character.
yeah, the last few movies he's been like the main concern, but probably not the main character in the last couple of movies. So he's not actually in a big chunk of it. He's in almost every scene. But in the very few scenes where there's just dialogue between two people who are not Seagal, I think you will find that those conversations make a whole lot more sense because I think Seagal was improving through like most of this. He had like a
improvs
general
all of
sense.
his lines.
I think he had like a general sense of what his line was supposed to be, and there'd be like keywords that he has to hit.
Yeah.
And as long as he hit those keywords, the other actors could like keep the scene going. But it felt very much
I
like
think
he was
that-
improving.
I think
That's-
that has to be the case even going back to his earlier movies. How else do you explain, like, you brought a screwdriver to a gunfight? That's sort of like bringing a screwdriver to a gunfight.
That has to be it because every single line for the past, I don't know, probably 16 movies has started with either, or so listen. Every single line. And it's always like, so listen, and then he does the line he's actually supposed to say. Oh, it's so frustrating.
But he just has like a keyword that he has to hit. And as long as he hits that
Yeah.
keyword, then the next line works. Because like every now and again, I noticed this when when Seagal and his daughter Becky were in the aquarium. It's a very awkward scene. It's very, very strange.
No, not that scene.
So
Let's hear it.
Seagal,
Let's hear it. Tell us about
is
it.
like walking his
No.
daughter around
No, this sucks.
the aquarium. He's finally getting some daddy-daughter time, trying to be a good
No.
dad. Except he comes off the whole scene as if he's still drunk, and like she is kind of guiding him around. That's definitely not like what the dialogue is telling you, but the delivery. And
He's going senile.
like
in this scene.
she made lunch for them both, and she's like he's.
Those aren't peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You made like peanut butter sandwiches.
No, you made jelly and
Those are
peanut
jelly
butter,
and peanut butter
sandwiches.
Yeah.
And she's just
And
kind
it's
of like
supposed to
laughing
be like
at
this
him.
cute line.
And like he asks, well, you know what Grandma would say about your precociousness, and she just looks at him for a second, like she's trying to be a professional actress and like act against him, do something. And so apparently they have a super Irish grandmother because she goes, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure. I mean, you probably had to write that on your own 12-year-old girl, so I'll take it. Go for it, I guess. But like I think she did a heroic job in that aquarium scene, shepherding Seagal through this
absolutely
movie.
sucks. Do you know what part of that scene is awful?
I mean, most of it, but go for it.
Well, truly most of it, but it really hits a valley. Whenever he's like, oh, I'm sorry I couldn't see you hang out with you the other day, and your stepdad made excuses for me or whatever. And she's like, oh, I could see your face and I could tell you're upset by something. And he goes, yeah, I have some stuff going on or whatever, but daddies shouldn't let stuff like that get in the way of daddy-daughter relations. That is not. Nobody wrote that. Nobody told you to say that, Steven. Oh, that is so. It literally made me like shudder.
You can feel
It's
the
so
bile
creepy.
in the back of your throat.
Yes.
I mean, there are several moments in this movie where you could just like feel the bile
Okay.
in the back of
Okay.
your
Wait.
throat.
That'll be in the bad section. Any other halfway decent stuff?
Oh, the scene where Seagal is like shooting at Blue to try and scare him, but Blue's like too cool.
No, that scene sucked. No.
Well, no, there's one part, and it's not because of anything Seagal did; it's because the prop department. When he's like shooting at the matchsticks.
No, the part's so stupid.
And so like, I mean, it was cool how they rigged it up. That some of the matchsticks light, and like so they break. Like the first couple break, and then one just breaks like the top off, and the last one lights, and so you have like this diagonal line of matchsticks.
I would agree with you. That would be cool, but that's not what happens. He breaks the first 3 and then lights the last 2. There's no progression.
But there's kind
no,
of
like-
they try.
No, he like shoots the tip off one, and then he like lights the last 2.
But it doesn't. It's not as seamless. It's not as solid. It's not as linear of a progression as what I think you're trying to describe it as.
Tried.
See, I just put in my notes that thing with the matches was pretty stupid because they show him like he's just in an empty warehouse and he's just setting these matches like
Making little
strike sign
targets.
up.
That
yeah.
is true.
And then like he talks to Blue,
Just to intimidate.
but then like Blue's walking away and it is like based on the angle, he looks like he's directly behind the matches.
Oh, yeah.
And Skull's like shooting these matches but not hitting him.
He's curving the bullets.
He is. He's doing. It's Wanted. Hans, have you seen the movie Wanted?
No, I haven't.
You
actually.
kind of need to see
How
the
did I
movie
know that?
Wanted.
How did I know that was going to be the answer? I didn't even have to ask.
You kind of need to see Wanted. It's not good, I don't think,
It's pretty fun. I think
but
you're
it has
right.
some really fun elements to it.
I was gonna say the last thing I can think of that was pretty halfway decent in this movie. I like the part when he's doing like the second hit. He's like in this like clubhouse and he's like taking out the dudes. There's these guys that are like duck pin bowling. in
Yeah.
their, like, villain
Yeah.
clubhouse. Which
Playing,
is
they're
kinda
like some
funny.
guys playing mahjong in like one of the
Yeah.
lanes, and then there's another lane where guys like duck pin bowling, and they have this guy at the end just like setting the pins back up.
This like beleaguered old man that clearly doesn't want to be there, but has to set up the pins and roll them the ball back.
A slave.
And Seagal comes in.
That's basically what he is.
And Seagal shoots all the guys, and this dude just like gives Seagal like a big thumbs up and like a smile. And I liked that part. I liked the dude that's setting up the duck pin
Mhm.
indentured servant that they had.
Indentured servant. That's awful.
It was
I
awful.
don't know the exact arrangement. Yeah, but then he gives them a smile and a big thumbs up at the end.
And
of
hopefully it goes home.
it. Yeah. What anything else that's actually kind of decent? Because there's a lot that's trash.
There's so much that's trash.
Oh, it actually, like, there's definitely some stunt doubling going on, but he looks like he's trying to do some of his own fight
I
scenes.
think he ran in this one.
I think so. And like that, we didn't have every single fight scene shot from the shoulder down. Like there are wide shots where he's like flailing his arms.
Yeah.
That's his fight scene, but he's flailing his arms at a guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
And it's Seagal
Effort.
flailing, It's pretty
You can tell
impressive.
that's actually Skull flailing.
Yeah.
It's not like when they literally cut to someone who like has a completely like you don't even realize is supposed to be doubling for Seagal because their body shapes are so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he gets shot in that scene, and actually, like afterwards, Steve is like, "Hey, you're not moving your arm. Like, what happened? Did your arm get hurt?" And I'm like, he suffered consequences from an injury. That's probably the first time that's happened.
They don't affect his
Yeah.
ability to fight anybody, but
No,
No,
but like
but
other
it's
characters
something.
reference, like that's the most. What we've seen before is you got shot. You call this getting shot? This isn't getting shot. So this is something.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the whole premise of this one, I think, is the first time we've ever seen a Seagal character have any kind of weakness isn't it, but like show. What's the word that I'm trying to think of?
Every character Seagal's playing at this stage of his career should be a deadbeat, like drunk, like divorced, like man, like in his 40s, instead of trying to still be the cool action star he thinks he is.
Yeah.
Like he's actually kind of playing a character that you're like, okay, yeah.
We could get Seagal for that
I'm
one,
trying to
yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of the
Like this actually fits in.
word.
We're not going to bring him onto an alien movie, and then halfway through he decides he doesn't want to do an alien movie.
Alien vampires.
I was actually thinking alien on a submarine.
Oh, I was thinking of the alien vampires in Paris. Gosh, we were robbed of two really good movies.
Right. Oh, speaking of, actually, there's a scene at the beginning where they're showing the montage of how much of like deadbeat this guy is, and like the daughter walks in and Seagal's just like asleep on the couch, and it was fucking hilarious. Like him just like laying on the couch facing away from the camera. It looks like they didn't even know he didn't even know they were filming. He was just asleep on set, and they just came in and started filming around.
And his daughter like pulls the blanket up to cover him.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Yeah.
Whenever they try to do establishing him as a deadbeat, it's very funny because he's like, of course, he's just like drinking straight out of the bottle. Like they're just like pulling out the cliche 101 like book.
Yeah, no, I think this is the first character. I can't think of the word because I'm stupid, but I think this is the first character that he's ever had some kind of like weakness built into his character, some kind of.
This is the first character
failing.
that's more than one dimensional.
Yeah.
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 Now let's just shift gears here and
let's
talk
pivot.
about all the things that were bad.
I'm trying to. I hit the clutch wrong. I'm grinding the gears. No, the shifting gears is going really
Because
poorly.
the very first thing that you said was actually surprisingly good. That car chase was preceded by the worst shootout I think we've seen yet, where they're like standing. There are two cars, one on either side of the SUV that Seagal and Blue are in, and they're shooting opposite directions at both of these cars. Yeah, it's just a bad shootout scene where they're in an SUV in the middle, and there's a car on either side of them with the crooked cops shooting at them, and they're not behind any cover. They're just like on either side of their SUV, and nobody hits any. I don't know. It goes on for like 5 minutes, and nobody hits anything, even though they're 5 feet away from each other, and it's just very dramatic for no reason, and it lasts for so long and nothing happens, and it adds no value to anything, and then that jumps right into an actually surprisingly competent car chase. It was weird.
Like you could trim it down to like 6 seconds and accomplish the same thing better.
Yeah, you could.
Like they're surrounding us. Okay, I gotta get in Blue's car. That's really all that's accomplished in that scene.
That's what I thought was going to happen, because Seagal's just like jauntily, he's sort of sauntering away, and the cops are following him after they let him. They locked him up for a night, let him go, and then wanted to follow him to find Blue, and they're really slowly following him in their car as he's walking, as if he's not
So
going to notice
funny.
them. Ridiculous.
It's so funny.
And then he ends up being like, or Blue rolls in his SUV to pick up Seagal, and you think Seagal's just going to get in the SUV and they're going to drive away, and then they just sit there in the middle of the road getting shot at for 5 minutes. and then they drive away,
Okay,
and
but
then
Hans,
you have the car chase.
But Hans, you have to admit, it's very funny. They like wanted to put a tailing scene in this movie, and they chose to do it in the most illogical way possible, where they release Seagal from jail, and he just kind of walks through the city, and they're not following him on foot too. They're following him. Have you ever seen a movie where a character's on foot and they're tailing him in a car? It's really funny because they're just like driving down the road, going 2 miles an hour,
really slowly,
very clearly, and like not hidden at all. There's a car following behind this guy walking. Not even Seagal would know he's being followed. Every other person on that block would know this car is following him.
There were no other cars on the road. Like the whole scene, there were no other cars, because if there were, they'd be held up, honking their horn at this police car that's driving 2 miles an hour just so they can stay 12 feet behind Seagal, who's walking on the sidewalk. Oh, it's so ridiculous.
I've seen movies that have a person being tailed on foot. I've seen movies that have a person being tailed in a car. I don't think I've ever seen one where the person's on foot being tailed in a car. That brought me a lot of joy.
Oi.
Oh.
So I mentioned this earlier, but I'll explain more of what I mean here. So like there are parts of this movie that are like weirdly high budget. Like I think a lot, pretty much, maybe even like most of the budget was poured into that car chase, which was fairly competent. Like they wreck a couple cars.
Fight at the end.
There's like an explosion.
I doubt it. The cars that they wreck were from the probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, so here's why I think it was.
This was a direct-to-DVD movie. The budget was like $20.
Yeah,
19 of those dollars were spent on the car chase.
So the reason I say that,
the
reason I'm doing my math this way, is because like. There are a couple shots where like there was obviously a hair on the lens, or like there was like some sort of artifact in the bottom right hand corner that was a problem with the camera itself, because it's only when it's from certain camera angles. So it's not like a problem in the edit or whatever. There's a malfunction with the camera because it comes up again later. So like they use the same camera for a different shot, and it's the same problem. Some of the cameras I swear were like camcorders that they just like bought at Walmart or something. It's so grainy, and it picks up light so poorly. Like things are either overexposed or underexposed, and there's like nothing you can do about it because the camera they used was so cheap. When Seagal goes to like the high stakes poker table, he's betting like $20,000 a hand. They're playing on like folding poker tables, with like cheap vinyl chips. And I love the writing of how they're playing this game of Hold'em. You can hear one of the guys in the background as he throws a handful of chips and he says 3 white ones, and he throws them into the middle. Like he doesn't announce how much it is, just like how many and what color of chips he's throwing in. It's glorious.
No, it feels like
the budget for this movie was $10 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's basically nothing.
Okay.
For a direct-to-DVD movie, come on.
But like it's $10 million, but like most of that budget of the budget that was actually spent on like the car chase scene could be the most expensive scene there. We're not saying it's an expensive scene. This isn't Tom Cruise running down, an entirely shut down like Times Square. This is the most expensive scene in a direct-to-DVD Seagal film from 2000.
And there are like a couple hundred people who worked on this movie that are credited. There are a lot of people here.
Yeah. No, but Aaron, to your point, my theory is that this movie was kind of like, this was written by like a Vincent Adult Man type character. This was written by a child that's like, kind of knows adults play poker and do high stakes poker, but has never played poker themselves. Like the romance scenes were written by a person that's like, this is how adults meet and like form like it wasn't written by an adult. This is written by a child imitating the trappings of adulthood.
I did find it very funny that in the poker scenes is like the climactic hand where like Seagal bets it all and is trying to call this other guy's bluff. I mean,
three of a kind and eights.
Not that this isn't a real scenario in poker. Yeah. It's just that like usually in these kind of a movie scene, they'd be holding on to a flush or a full house or something. A skillfully played hand of poker. But no, Seagal loses with a what was it?
He had a 3 of a kind and 8s.
Yeah, and he loses to a guy who had a 3 of a kind and jacks. And I know that that's not necessarily unimpressive and or unrealistic, but it is very funny to me that those are the ones that they chose.
It's definitely not
for a
cinematic.
movie? Yeah,
It
it's
is
not
because in the
cinematic at
movie,
all.
That scene is always like, ha ha ha, straight flush. And then they go, wait a minute, royal flush. Or flip that. I don't know which one's.
Royal flush.
Yeah, I don't
But,
know
like,
enough about poker.
The end,
I
it's
just know
always
that
a like royal flush.
yeah.
I just know that Three of a Kind is not particularly impressive.
It's surprisingly realistic. Like, that's the type of player that a dude who like owes gambling debts all over town is, that he has a 3 of a kind and he thinks he's like guaranteed to win.
Well, so like in Hold'em, that's not a bad hand. Is the frustrating thing. Like that's not a terrible hand. Like it would be worth it to play that hand. Not to $20,000. Absolutely not. But like it'd be worth it if you're holding a pocket pair. Like it's worth it. I'm exposing myself as knowing a little bit about poker. Please don't think I know like a lot. I just know like a couple things, and one of them is if you start the game with a pair, like it's worth it to play for at least for a while. Because if you get the third out there, you have a much higher probability. If you start with a pair in your hand before any cards come out, you have a high probability of getting something. Which most hands in like Hold'em poker, you don't even play. Like a guy who lived down the hall from me in seminary was a professional gambler. He said he plays like 15% of all the hands that he gets in poker. He's folding 85% of the time. And so if you have anything, it's worth it to play. Also, that makes terrible cinematic storytelling, because that's like a really boring way to talk about gambling, because the reality of gambling is that it's boring. And they could have either leaned into that and showed just like how boring this guy's life is and how he's just like losing money daily in this really boring thing that he's just addicted to and brings him no pleasure. Or they could have leaned into like some sort of exciting poker game like you see most movies do. Instead, they try to like split the difference. And so they had like the big cinematic, like the camera angles and the way that everyone's delivering their lines. It feels like it's supposed to be this big important moment, but it's it's like 3 of a kind against a higher 3 of a kind, which is like a very normal hand.
It's just not exciting.
It's not exciting at
feel
all.
like
It's not cinematic.
But it's...
Oh, I feel like in my mind palace, I was just transported to the film 21 starring Jim Sturgis and Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, like this same year, we got a much better gambling movie.
Oh, jeez. I think I referenced it briefly the other room. Should we talk about what was maybe the worst part of the movie? Was any scene that he had with Drea?
Yeah.
That she was somehow mysteriously unexplained and like they never explained that she just falls in love with him for no reason.
So, but also,
well, no, they do it.
Like, okay,
that's not the problem I have with it.
So the Drea's story is that he picks her up at a bar. They sleep together. She pretends to be like impressed by his cooking skills when he makes 2 fried eggs. Which, when she said, "Wow, you cook," I like wrote down in my notes, "It's 2 fried eggs." And then Seagal says, "It's 2 fried eggs. Anyone can make this." I'm like, okay, thank goodness. The movie knows how lame this is. This one time. And then so she like spills her guts about who she is and things. Like what her motivate. She just kind of explains to the camera what her motivations are. They don't come up at all. They don't factor into nothing about. She has like this whole backstory about like men always looking down on her in her line of work. And so she's like a freelance artist now. Really, in reality, she's a freelance assassin, except she still works for men. And the fact that, you know, she had like this tension in the past doesn't factor into any of her decisions for the rest of the movie, but whatever. And then you find out, like Seagal finds out that she's also working for the old man and like feels betrayed. But they weren't allies. Like, she was a one-night stand who happened to be working for the same guy that you're working for, except you didn't know that. But it's not like she got any information or anything out of you. She didn't take anything from you. Like, nothing happened. I don't really understand why he feels like betrayed. Surprised would be one thing. Like, oh, that random lady I picked up at a bar is also a secret assassin in this wanted team. But like, betrayed what?
Yeah, it's not like he shared his life with her and then she was upset when he lied.
No, he shares nothing about himself. He makes some inappropriate jokes about his genitals, and then the scene ends.
So
that's the problem. Is like half of what you said, you're like, she explains her backstory, and I'm like, no. The only reason they have her explain this is to make like the terrible joke. Like that's the payoff. The payoff is this like awful joke that he makes. It's not going to again. I'm like, I've seen these. I'm like, this isn't going to factor in.
Yeah.
Her talk.
I should know by now.
I
should know by now.
For reference, they're at the bar, and he is like literally just sitting there, just kind of like looking like he's just like staring at his target, but it just kind of looks like he's like at the bar pouting. And this woman walks up, and she's, he's like literally sitting there just like in a bowling shirt or something. Yeah. Like he is rocking 200% divorced dad energy, and she's immediately like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, she's like half his age.
If I sit here, and so of course. What they have this awful their dialogue at the bar is terrible. So she's like, oh, that guy over there, he's bad news, stay away from him. But then he's like, what's Drea short for? And she's like, Andrea. And she's like, what's your name? Matt. And she's like, what's Matt short for? And he says, normally it's short for unlucky son of a or whatever. But maybe I could get lucky tonight. And she's like, what would make you lucky tonight? And he's like, you tell me. And she's like, I think I already
it's the worst.
It's awful. And then
it's so bad.
Well, because then later on, she's giving her backstory. Again, like you said, Aaron, you watching another movie, you think this might factor in. She's like, I always had men that would like tell me how to do my job and act like they know better than me. And like, I realized like it didn't matter if like if I could get any better, I would just have to grow a. And he goes, I think I'd like you a little less if you had a, especially if it was bigger than mine.
And she says,
and she goes, oh. You wouldn't have to worry about that.
I don't think that's possible. And then the scene ends.
I don't think that's yes. Oh,
I like slumped over on my chair. I was so frustrating.
This fucking sucks.
It was so gross.
Because it's not even clever. It's not even like a little gross but
Why
clever.
would it be?
It's just gross. It's just bad
Why would it
dialogue, bad writing for the sake of having it in there.
And every interaction they have is this bad. Even later on, he says something else gross. When he feels betrayed and he's like, all that, because he feels betrayed ostensibly because he realizes she was planted. This organization has him going to take on a hit, so of course it actually kind of makes sense. Like both how they just like happened like to be together, how she ends up just like magically like being in love with him, and wanting his immediately. And for like how she also happens to be in this organization. Basically, he's scouting out his target, and they had her like seduce him, like to keep tabs on him or whatever. I don't know, like for secret villain, wanted organization type stuff. And he's like, this conversation when he's like talking about the betrayal is so gross. It's gross. I hate it because he's like, and all that good loving you gave me, was that for them or was that for you? And she goes, oh, that was for me. Oh, I hated that.
So awful. The way he says it too, because the whole movie, he has his typical. It's not even an accent. It's an offensive It's an offensive impression of a stereotypical black person.
But sometimes it's an offensive stereotype of a cowboy.
Yeah, and that's just his dialogue throughout the
All
entire
that
movie.
Good
but that
you gave
line,
me, that was just it was
a
trick.
Well, that wasn't even. That one wasn't even as a cowboy. That line specifically was just him. That was just him being himself because he's a creep. That was his voice saying it, and it was the worst because you have this like, well, you know how I do, and all this other crap that is just how he talks throughout the whole movie. And then he has that line that is all that good loving you gave me, and it was because that's him. That's just who he is. Like that's just Steven Seagal being Steven Seagal, not trying to be anyone else because he's a creep. Ew. It's just disgusting.
You really see his creep. Like I said, it's truly the worst with her. Also, shout out to the time when he feels betrayed and he says, as close as we've been. And this was after they had one scene together. But every interaction he has, he greets his ex-wife with, hey, baby, what's going on? Even his interactions with his daughter when he's like, oh, our daddy-daughter relations. Every scene he has with a woman is the creepiest framing possible. And it even bleeds into other things. Like, even his presence, like, makes it creepy. Like, at the end, like, when you realize Steve's the villain, and there's the scene where it's, like, cutting to shots of his daughter, like, on a trampoline, and it's just this girl like jumping on a trampoline, and there's just like 3 adult men just standing there not talking to each
Just
other,
like
just watching
looking
her.
at her.
It's weird.
Like they're like a police get together
Yeah.
at Steve's house or something.
Steve's and his
you know,
buddies,
backyard barbecue. But there are no other children. Like none of the other cops
Yeah.
brought their kids to jump on the trampoline. It's just her. It's very
and they're
weird.
just like each standing there holding a beer, watching her jump on the trampoline, doing nothing else. And I'm just like, is this like the Seagal creepiness like bleeding into other characters or something? Like the infestation is spreading? Oh, I hated that so much. That was easily the worst part of this movie. Like every time Dre appears on screen, I'm like, no, I'm just like, I don't have an issue with like Renee Elise Goldsberry. She's fine. Like even the character
she's
Dre
a
is
better
not
actress.
great,
She deserves better.
but I know there's gonna be a weird interaction that makes my skin crawl in this scene as soon as she appears, because Seagal's also there.
A great line. Not because it's actually a good line, but just because I had to like stop and think for a second about this. So like Seagal's ex-wife, when he goes over to their house like during the cop party, she's like in the kitchen to get away from the party for a little bit, and she's drinking. And she tells Seagal, "I married Steve to get away from all this." To which I wrote, "All what? You married a different cop from the same department and didn't move to a different town."
I literally married my ex-husband's cop friend to get away from all the cops. What? Yes.
You have the exact same life you had before, just with a different cop.
You did a completely lateral move and then acted surprised when stuff was the same. When all of your husband's work buddies are still cops because they work in the same
Not
department.
even like they just, all of his work buddies are cops. It's the same work buddies.
The same. They're literally from. It's like, oh, I'm tired of my husband's boring office friends, so I married a different guy in the same office.
Ooh. She's yeah, I don't know if she's human.
Thank you for bringing me some joy. Thank you for bringing me out of that.
A fun dumb thing. So when he goes to like that place with the duck pin bowling, where the Asian mafia
Plays
is,
with the duck pin bowling, aka the criminal.
well, there's like this criminal hangout. And everyone is like vaguely Asian, so like some of the people are speaking Korean, some are speaking Japanese, some speak Cantonese. Like it's the entire continent of Asia is represented in this gang. Very multicultural. But
there's even a Russian and an Indian.
That's a really
guy there,
positive way to put it.
but like the head guy that actually gets killed, like that he's there to kill. He kills a lot of guys other than the head guy that he's there to kill. But when he kills the head guy, like he holds up this blanket in front of him, and he gets shot, and you can see the squib pack like move on the blanket when it explodes.
I'm okay with that kind
It's
of
like
thing.
a block that's just like you can see the tape where they like taped it to the other side of the blanket. It's great.
Okay, so speaking of this one makes me want to talk about something that extends beyond just this movie into like the larger just Seagal overall.
Oh yeah.
So I do not understand why they keep trying to make Seagal something he's very clearly not.
Attractive, sexy.
Well, that, yes. But the reason I say this is because I've kind of dropped this line of, I don't know, as the movies I've gone on, I haven't talked about this as much, but for like, I remember like the first like few ones, I was saying like, he should just be a super bloody, violent, like amoral, just like, man, just killing people for no reason. Like, don't try to justify it. Don't make him like, don't even make him an anti-hero. Don't make him like redempted in any way. Just make redeemed.
Come on.
Just do like RoboCop, but with even like less morals and ethics than that. Just have him walk around and shoot people and have like big bloody squibs go off. That should be his thing. So what I don't understand is they keep trying to do this. They keep trying to make him a ghost. They keep trying to make him the sneakiest man ever, where he can just go like at the beginning of this movie when they literally say, I need someone who can walk into a mall, kill a guy, and like get out with nobody noticing. So I'm watching, I'm like, why did they even bother to try to set this up where he's like a super stealthy, he's going to walk in and just do the explosive. Okay, yeah, he just walked in and shot the guy in the face. Like, there's a show don't tell, and the show and the tell are completely opposite of each other. So I'm like, lean into it. In the movie RoboCop, not the actor himself, but like in the armor they have him wearing, he literally can't walk. He is wearing like a washing machine worth of like armor. But RoboCop works because the guy can just walk into a room, pull out a gun the size of my head, and shoot a guy in the chest 47 times, and they spend half the budget on the squibs.
Which is kind of like how he handles some of these. Like, so when he
handles these situations like RoboCop.
Yeah.
He says, "Don't move, creep," and then shoots a guy in the dick. But they keep trying to say he's something else.
So like,
just lean
Well, it's
into
like-
when he
it.
kills his,
what was
yeah.
it? It was it was one of the early ones. Was it Hard to Kill? Where he just like steals a car. Like
Yeah.
he's supposed to be a cop or something that after he comes back from being in a coma,
Yeah.
he's still a cop, but he's trying to like be the good guy. But he just steals a car and then sells it to a gang.
Yeah.
And then just goes on the murderous rampage throughout the city, breaks into a jewelry store
Yeah.
or something. I think that was all Hard to Kill, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And just causes untold chaos, but he's the good guy at the end of the movie.
well, like that's how,
Like you're
yeah, that's how he kills his first mark in this movie, Bruno. He just goes to the restaurant where Bruno's like having lunch with the other mobsters, sits down at the table with them, talks to them for like a
I'm gonna
minute,
sit
makes them all mad, and then just starts blasting everyone. Flips the table, just absolutely destroys the place.
The second one, he just
Yeah.
goes into a place, literally like kicks mahjong tables over and just starts shooting people. The thing is, like, we're 27 movies into this, and this is the 27th time they've said he's like a ghost. You won't see him coming. He's so sneaky, and he just waddles into a room and just starts shooting / kicking everything that moves.
Even like
what are we still doing? Why are we maintaining this lie?
the actual real,
You don't have to. He doesn't have to be stealthy operative.
the actual real life Steven Seagal is 6.5 feet tall. Like he's not
Right.
gonna. He's a large man, even before he got
and I'm not
rotund.
saying someone with his physique can't be an action hero, but like lean into
Yeah.
what he very clearly is.
He's always been, even in the 80s when he was like skinny, he was still 6.5 feet tall. Like he's not gonna
Right.
sneak in anywhere. And they didn't try to do that in his 80s movies and like the early 90s movies. I don't think so. Like if you watch like Above the all the way back, Above the Law, it's like more of a classic action movie in that he's not trying to be like a stealthy killer. He just busts down the door and starts shooting people. That kind of worked for who he is.
But like they've decided that he's like the sneakiest, stealthiest, most silent assassin ever. But I'm like, why do you keep saying that?
Here's the thing,
You
though.
don't have to say that. These movies can exist with you not saying that.
I completely understand where you're coming from. I agree with you wholeheartedly that you're 100% correct. But you keep saying they've decided. It's not they've decided. He has decided. Because he comes onto every single one of these projects and rewrites the script so that it fits like his persona, how he views himself in the world. He's the one that makes himself the ghost, because that's how he views himself, because he's an idiot.
Like, can't somebody convince him to be like an unstoppable, unhurtable, like amazing in every single way and sexy to every single woman, badass, but a slightly different badass?
Zach,
That's all I want.
He decided halfway through a movie shoot, I don't even remember which one it was, that he could not kill the bad guy because his like Buddhist monk advisor.
This
That
was
was-
an earlier one.
told,
We're back in the 90s.
it was whichever one had Steven Tobolowsky in it, because Steven Tobolowsky had to convince Steven Seagal
Glimmer Man?
that I am the bad guy, you have to kill me.
That was Glimmer Man.
I think that was Glimmer Man.
Was it? It was just like this man is a moron.
He's
I mean, you're certainly right.
hunting down the
there.
family man.
Yeah, well, you're right. That was Glimmer Man.
Yeah. I get that, but like just why can't he just walk in? He can just walk into a room and just shoot people, and that's actually kind of funny here because, again, like I said, he goes into a room and this guy's having sex with a woman, and the guy's holding the bedsheet in front of him. I'm okay seeing the squib. I'm okay with that. If you give me like the big like
It was a
squib
big
explosion,
squib.
like
It was.
it was fantastic.
But see, the thing here is Steven Seagal has to portray himself as being the good guy. He has to be like the redeeming character in the story, but only up to a certain point. Because I my favorite line in this, I can't even remember the exact line, But while he's tailing his first target, the guy like stops his car, stops at a fruit stand, like steals a piece of fruit, yells at the person selling the fruit, and then leaves. And Seagal goes up to the vendor and like pays for a piece of fruit, and he goes, "Oh, so that guy was pretty rude to you, huh?" And then the scene ends, and like that's it. And he has to have that last line. He has to be able to talk to the fruit vendor and apologize and say that he's a good guy. But then later on, the during the car chase, in the car that I guess Steven Seagal isn't driving the car, it's Blue that's driving the car, but they run over the same fruit stand.
Yeah.
And it's like he was just not an hour beforehand, he was the good guy. He was apologizing to the vendor for the mark being rude.
Well,
and he was buying
okay,
a piece of fruit. And then later on in the movie, they just run it down.
You say apologizing, he actually just walks up, picks up a piece of her fruit and says, "Korean, Japanese?"
He does say that. He's kind of a jackass about it.
Well, and because he doesn't even apologize, he just says those guys were being dicks to you.
Okay, but that's how he apologizes. That's him. That's him showing that he's like a good guy. He's relatable. He's supposed to be the hero of the story. But then later on in the story, he just runs the fruit stand down.
Okay,
like,
Hans, you know what that reminds me of?
What?
This reminds me of when he has like this friend for life, and the friend turns out to be a villain, but like, you know, they still have some kind of connection because he saved this guy's life at one point. So, and you know, but he has to kill him. He has to take him out because he actually is a bad guy. But then instead, you know, how you might just like, I had to kill him, you know, it's what I had to do. But like, you know, let's respectfully, nope, let's throw him into a car and explode it in front of his stepdaughter. Like, I kind of thought, oh, they're kind of talking. How would you like to be buried? I'm like, okay, because it's come to this, but they have this connection with each other. And then he goes, nope, wouldn't it be badass if I threw him into this car and exploded it?
You're cremated now.
Why would he do that?
Like, as his daughter is like rolling on the ground wailing, watching her dad kill her
this
stepdad.
Man's corpse is the fruit stand.
And he's not like, he's such an about it, because, and that's just him. That's just him being him. Because there are so many, like, that's a trope. That's something that happens in movies. Like, you have the big climactic fight between the hero and the villain, and when one of them is dying, like, the fight is objectively over, and then they have a little heart-to-heart. And they're like, you know, we're not so different, you and I. It really sucks that you had to kill me. And then they die, and that's it. Like, that's the climax. They could have had that here, but nope. He has to just throw him into a car and explode the car. A hearse.
It's literally like you're watching the film Black Panther, and you know he's looking over the sunset, and he goes, you know, what is it that he says? He's like, you know, like, bury me at the ocean so I can be with my ancestors. Just imagine if then instead of doing that, Black Panther is just like, haha, nope, and then just like punched him so hard he exploded for no reason. Like, oh wow, there was almost like stakes and an emotional payoff there, but nope, we had to get rid of that. I do also shout out to the fact that Drea rescues the daughter and then goes, okay, like, while the gunfight is still going on, she goes, okay, run
run to your dad. There's
go
still like active
gunshots going off.
Run and find your dad.
Don't stay with me. Go run into the middle of this gunfight, like flailing. You were the hostage 10 seconds ago. I'm sure nothing bad will happen.
I just want to throw one little fun fact in here. Did anybody else think that Steve looks like Joey from Friends?
What?
I think he looks like Joey from Friends. I've never seen a full episode of Friends, but
no.
Guy who has not even seen one episode of Friends. Wow, I'm getting some Friends vibes.
Speaking as someone who has seen, almost embarrassingly so, because I have it on just in the background all the time. Speaking as someone who has seen the entirety of Friends at least 5 times, this man looks absolutely nothing like Joey from Friends.
Okay, then let me pivot from something I absolutely know nothing about to something I know quite a bit about. The weird Catholic stuff in this movie made absolutely no sense.
Okay, wait, real quick. But I was going to make a joke. I was just going to say, but did you think that Lance Henriksen kind of looked like Bishop from Aliens?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
All right, let's hear it. We got to...
No, this will be quick because most of it makes absolutely no sense.
Oh, no, I'm into it. This was something I've been waiting for.
So, like, opening scene with
say.
Seagal is he's sitting in, like, counseling. It's not confession, but it's like some sort of spiritual counseling when the priest just calls him a dirtbag and says that he's like the worst.
Best part of the movie.
And just
I actually really liked
One of my favorite
lists
scenes.
to him all of his problems and so it just kind of ends it with, but like you're a good man, I think maybe. Terrible. Don't ever do that. That doesn't work. Not how that works. When Steve goes into the confessional, and is like trying to get him to give information, I'm pretty sure that the priest already gave too much information and is probably excommunicated at that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
even just saying like, oh, he comes here for
you're not
confession,
even
I feel
allowed
like
to
is-
say like if someone has come to you for confession. And in fact, depending on what state they're in, the priest could sue Steve for asking because he's an officer of the law. Like there are some states where that's protected as a religious right. So like he could, like sue the police department for even asking. But I'm pretty sure the priest already gave too much information. It depends on like what conversations they've had outside of confession. And well, if he hasn't broken the seal of confession, then he might have broken like counselee confidentiality because he's a religious counselor, which means like Seagal would have the same protections as like doctor-patient confidentiality. So he doesn't have the right to just like tell him all that stuff. But anyway, once the priest does die, this funeral makes no sense. You see the funeral procession coming in, but the casket's already been there for like...
Oh no, they're leaving.
Are they leaving? I thought they were coming in.
It is a really weird shot, and it took me. I'm with you because it took me a second to figure this out. Because you see Seagal, the casket is there, and you see Seagal standing in the middle of the road as a bunch of cars are passing him.
Yeah,
They're supposed to be leaving.
Because I was really confused because there was a little bit of like the rite going on, like the burial rite going on, which what they were saying wasn't the burial rite. One, they were reading Psalm 23, which the only reason you'd be reading a psalm at that point is if you're doing like readings at the burial, which you would only do if you didn't just come from a funeral where you had those readings, which sometimes you do if someone has a burial but no funeral, but he's a priest. He definitely had funeral. And so like they're reading Psalm 23 and it's a Protestant translation of Psalm 23, which I thought was very funny. Like that's the King James version, which we don't use. But then everyone leaves and the casket's just like there, just like still sitting there with no one around.
Then lowered into the ground or anything.
Yeah, that gets lowered into the ground like pretty much immediately. Like the gravedigger will be standing by like stuff during the whole burial, and then once everyone shuffles off, the gravedigger comes by and just lowers it into the ground and covers it with dirt, and it's done. Like it made no sense. Also,
and during the
I feel like this church that they're in, that's supposed to be like Holy Trinity Catholic Church or whatever it's called. I don't think that's a Catholic church. I think it was like a high church Lutheran church that they just like built a confessional in the corner because the confessional looks completely different from everything else in the building. Like it could be a Catholic church, but like the raised pulpit and like the choir stalls in the sanctuary, that's a very Protestant thing in the United States. Like that would be weird to have in a Catholic church in the U.S. An old Lutheran church, they look exactly like that.
That's funny.
It could be that no Catholic churches in the area let them film, but they found a Lutheran church that would. But he really needed to be Catholic and not Lutheran for the whole confession thing to work. So
yeah,
they just built a confessional in the corner.
The funny thing about going back to the grave or the funeral scene at the graveyard is that even though the casket isn't lowered into the ground, then there's this massive gunfight, which basically centers around that casket. Yeah. The like bullets hit gravestones all around and they all explode into bits and pieces, but not a single bullet hits that casket.
He was protected by divine protection. Actually, speaking of just funny, A, you mentioned depending on like what state this takes place in, and B, you mentioned like filming location. When you were watching this movie, did you happen to think like, wow, wherever this is taking place looks like really bad, like I wouldn't want to live here? Did you happen to think like this looks like this was filmed
I didn't really
in some
think
kind
about
of
it.
Terrible trash location? Did you happen to think like this was filmed in like maybe like one of the worst cities in one of the worst states? Like
it did look weirdly
like,
empty.
What was this filmed in Connecticut?
Connecticut.
Everything was filmed on location in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Why did I watch Submerged when I was staying in Bridgeport, Connecticut? I should have watched this one for the full experience.
I was wondering where you were
The
going
timing
with that.
on this. The timing on this could have been so much better. Yeah, filmed on location in Bridgeport, Connecticut for 37 days.
Let's go ahead and rehash for our listeners why you hate Connecticut, the whole state.
Terrible state. It is the backwash of Long Island Sound. But yes, no, I'm not even Catholic, and there was definitely some funkiness going on with all of that, so I knew you'd have something to say about that. Was there anything else you picked up on?
No, not really. It was just like
they just got it all wrong.
It's just all of it was wrong. Like it was, but it wasn't wrong in ways that like movies don't usually get it wrong. Like
it's just that they definitely didn't consult with anybody who would have known.
Like I can't really watch movies that are centered around, Catholic stuff unless they really had someone good there to tell them how stuff actually works, because it's pretty much always wrong.
It's like me watching a movie that has anything to do with computers and hacking.
Yeah, so here's just like a little. You can cut what I'm about to say out of here because I think this is just something fun to think about every now and again. If you watch movies and you see the thing that you are familiar with and it's totally wrong, does it ever make you think that maybe everything else in this movie is also just completely wrong? I just don't know enough about that thing.
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
So it's not for movies, but that is like a real world concept when it comes to the news.
Yeah. Like whenever the news
that,
reports on Catholic stuff, it is wrong.
Well, it's just like in general, anytime the news reports on something they have personal experience with, you notice all the issues, but like most people don't apply that to the fact that like outside of like what they know. Like we realize, oh, they probably are this amount of wrong all the time. I just don't know it's.
Yeah, I don't listen to anything reported about the Pope. It is 100% just wrong. Sometimes fabricated. Like
that, but that is like that is a noted thing that happens in like not even just every field of expertise. Just like if you are the subject of a story, you'll notice every detail they get wrong. But then people tend to still like they don't apply that to like every single. Oh, they're probably getting this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. How was your watching of the Netflix series Daredevil?
It was great.
It
was really good.
I was kind of curious because it felt like they did a better job.
They did a great job. Actually, so like at one point, Matt Murdock like quotes the Catholic teaching, the pre-Pope Francis Catholic teaching, because it was kind of like in the early days of Pope Francis, on capital punishment. He like quotes it verbatim. It was great because he, the whole thing about it, like him arguing with Punisher. He's like quoting church documents without saying, well, this document says this, which means like someone on the writing staff had read it but knows that Matt Murdock wouldn't be a nerd like that. He would know it, but he wouldn't like quote it that way. It was very well done.
Makes sense. Speaking of, so just Seagal going to the priest, this is like the last kind of thing that really stuck out as like really absolutely just sucking and like pulling this movie down. So I mentioned earlier during the recap like how this movie has information it wants to reveal and reveals it rather inelegantly. So the movie kind of sets up that he's a deadbeat and divorced and his wife is with this new man and everything. And then like, I don't know, roughly like halfway into the movie, it's ostensibly like Seagal is in confession or something, like he's talking to the priest. But what happens is the movie just goes, okay, here's a voiceover from Seagal where over the next 2 minutes, he's going to explain what happened. He's just going to outright state, this stuff went missing. I was accused of it because I gambled. Like, the money was gone, so they accused me. But then he stepped in and lied and said I had an alibi. But, like, one, it's actually weird to just hear Steven Seagal talk continuously for, like, more than 5 seconds. Like, so it's both in terms of how it's used, like, this voiceover that just, this monologue that exists in the middle of the movie sucks, A, because it's just the movie saying, well, we couldn't figure out another place to say all this, so we're just going to have Seagal straight up say it. And B, because he's not good at delivering like a monologue. Like when it's more than just, so listen, I'm going to tell you this one thing. Like my man is reading off a script and he is like spot reading. He is like reading the way children learning to read, like put their finger on the word and sound it out. I swear. Like he is saying each word individually.
It's not the first time that's happened either.
But like it is very noticeable here.
Oh, for sure. What was the last one? There was it was the one where his daughter was kidnapped. It was the Taken one.
Belly of the
Pistol
Beast.
whipped?
Was it Belly of the Beast? Yeah, it was
like,
Belly of the Beast. Yeah. He gets to the end where his buddy that owned the bar or whatever was the bad guy all along, and you could tell that from the very beginning. Yeah. And he just explains out loud for a solid 2.5 minutes the plot up until this point.
Right.
Just in case the viewer couldn't follow the garbage plot, he has to recap it for you.
But I'm like, they didn't get an imitator for this. This is Seagal, and I think he's trying, but even if he's trying his best is not good.
Not doing it for me.
This is very bad. This isn't how you should reveal information, movie, and this isn't the right man to do it.
That's just a really good description of that man as a whole. He sucks. He's very bad. He sucks.
Not at all. Anything else really?
Did you just Aaron, hold on. Aaron, did you just say
character judgments about people?
Even
Aaron, I'm sorry. Normally I would be on your side because you're a very good person. You're a much better person than me, and normally I would agree with you that that's the right move. You shouldn't make character judgments on people you don't know.
No.
But it is pretty much a fact.
You added
a
modifier in there that I didn't add in.
What?
I said you shouldn't make character judgments on people, and you said you shouldn't make character judgments on people you don't know. And that's not what I said.
No, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. Oh, you're right. You shouldn't make character judgments on people, period. That doesn't change the fact that Steven Seagal is he's a bad person.
He has done some pretty bad things. That's different.
Any other outside of Steven Seagal's morality, real life morality? Any other thoughts on the like anything else that or still technically I think in like the stuff that sucked section? Anything else that sucked?
No.
The one thing that did kind of make me chuckle, I don't know where else to fit this in the podcast, so I'm just gonna inelegantly like ramble on it for about like 1 minute. But I referenced earlier that when Blue recruits him, he's like, this target's a really bad man who does bad things. He like kidnaps children and makes them work in like, asbestos mines. And Seagal's like, oh, I want to kill the guy. And the guy's like, but he has an 8-year-old daughter, and that daughter's like really excited for her dance recital, but she's nervous, but he knows she's going to do a good job. And Seagal's like, oh, I don't want to kill the guy. And then the guy's like, but this guy, he also like, cheats on his taxes and doesn't pay his parking tickets. And Seagal's like, okay, I do want to kill the guy. And then he's like, oh, but actually he just took his daughter out for ice cream yesterday. And it was like the best day of that year for her. And Seagal's like, oh, I don't want to kill the guy. Like he does this weird thing. So at the end, I just like picture like he's still in the organization and he's like seems just like Drea just like hands him a target and he's like, all right, cool. Which allegedly, according to the IMDb trivia section, his last assignment is an image of the director Roel Renee kind of making like
really?
A cameo, which is pretty.
That's funny,
fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just what the trivia section says. But he like clearly doesn't have problems like doing this line of work anymore. Like he's fine killing the people. So I like to imagine that he's just like, without like Blue here just constantly reminding me that these people have like families, like, I'm totally fine. Like I'm on board killing these people like nonstop.
Here I
like,
go killing again.
Yeah, he straight up is just like, now that he's not reminding me about their like kids and families and stuff, I love killing these people. This is amazing.
Well, also just like he cared about the Marks families and things, but like all the goons or like the people who just happened to be eating lunch that day, he doesn't care about their families.
Ooh, there was some pretty solid goonery going on here. When a bad guy who's like the boss says like, hey, I need you to take care of this. And they're like, yes, sir, boss. We got right on it, boss. Sure thing, boss. There's some good goon behavior here. Those are some solid grade A Batman, like 1960s Batman goons.
Sure thing, boss. I got
Sure thing, boss. Yeah. We'll take care of it, boss. Don't you worry. 10 out of 10. Yeah, so what's your favorite
my favorite
quote,
line?
What's your letterboxed star rating?
My favorite what do you want, my favorite line or my
Do your line and then do your star rating.
Okay, so my favorite line is when he's about to kill Bruno, and Bruno says, I'm a businessman doing business. And I just think, was Donald Trump like a secret Seagal fan?
Oh, that's the wildest so far.
It was great.
So we have Christopher Nolan, we have Hideo Kojima, we have Donald Trump, we have Luc Besson.
Yeah, they're just all secret Seagal fans. My star rating for this, I don't know, 2 stars maybe. Because there are like parts of this movie that I want to give like 2.5 stars and they're part of this movie, I want to give like negative a star. But I think
I don't think your average is averaged out there.
well, the parts that get like
it's graded on curve.
2.5 stars are longer than the parts that get like negative a star. So it works out to like maybe 2 stars if I'm feeling generous. Waking up tomorrow morning, I might think 1.5.
Again, I don't know why you're feeling generous, but all right, Hans, what about your line and your star rating?
2 stars. The line. What did I say before? Oh, it's the fruit vendor. When he was talking to the fruit vendor, he said, "Oh, so that guy was a real jerk, huh?" But it's not. The line isn't good. It's just because of the context of how he has to portray himself as the good guy, but then later on in the movie runs down the fruit stand. It's just very telling of his character.
Like he tried.
It's just awful.
He did try.
It's just awful.
I think I will actually also go with 2 stars.
Wow.
We are.
Is this the first time
perfect
we all agreed?
We've all agreed.
Simpatico.
Yeah,
it took
we've all agreed on
27
pretty much
movies for us
everything.
to all agree on the
Really?
star rating.
We dialed it in here. I like the part when the old man, who again I will reiterate is played by Bishop from Aliens, because that's just absurd that we're in 2008 and we're still having like that's like that type of actor like pop up in these movies. I don't know if he just really needed the money or something. When he first buys all of Seagal's markers and is recruiting him, when he's like, "Thank you for coming. I'd say thank you for coming here, but you can't really because you were made to come. But I'm gonna make you an offer." And Seagal says, "What kind of offer?" And he says, "An offer that you can't refuse," because it temporarily reminded me of a much better movie. It made me a little mad because like, when a movie's being a little cute and cheeky and they say, "I'm going to make him an offer I can't refuse," referencing the very famous line from The Godfather, I'm like, okay, that's kind of cute, but like the movie has to be somewhat decent. When the movie's very bad and it references this line from The Godfather, it kind of makes me upset. But still, just like the fact that the movie was so bold to put that like 20 minutes in right on a plate, like Godfather reference.
In fairness, he says, "I want to make you an offer," and Seagal says, "Let me guess, this is an offer that I can't refuse." And then he says, "No, you can refuse."
Oh, I misremembered my favorite line then. I guess it can't really be my favorite line. Then I guess actually my favorite line in the movie would be when Drea says, "And after like a bunch of years I finally realized that I really needed to do was grow a dick." And Matt said, "Well, probably I would like you a lot less if you had a dick." And then Matt said, "Especially if it was bigger than mine, you know what I mean?" And Drea says, "I don't think that's possible." Maybe
Did you
that's
look
my
up
favorite.
the script? Are you reading it right now? I can see you reading it from your screen.
Oh, it's so awful.
It's so
Yeah.
bad. It's
Ugh.
so
It's
awful.
like poison. It's poison.
Made me
for my heart.
really. It was gross.
Were there any other actors?
We already said that Renee Elise Goldsberry went on to do
Renee
Hamilton,
Goldsberry.
like the main
the
cast.
original Broadway run of Hamilton. Dane.
I remember looking through before, and I didn't really find much.
Lance Henriksen, who I've referenced as
Oh my
in
gosh!
Alien. He was also in Millennium and the X-Files and
No,
Tarzan
I just
and
found
Call of Duty Modern
something.
Warfare 2 and Mass Effect and the Terminator and Stone Cold and Pumpkinhead. Okay,
The
yes, what'd you
poker dealer, he has like
Sure.
a line where he tells
Yeah.
Seagal, like, no, he tells like the guy that Seagal's betting against that like you can't just overbet him that way. Like we don't take debts at this
Right.
fake gambling establishment. That guy is the original. Well, maybe not original, but the 1990 Steve Rogers live action Captain America.
Oh, that's fun.
He was also in Revenge of the Nerds. Sure. I care about that much less.
Renee Elise Goldsberry. She was also Mimi Marquez in the filmed version of Rents. She was in White Collar and The Good Wife, Law and Order SVU for 3 episodes. Wow, I was expecting like 1 episode
my
as like
gosh.
random victim or person they interview. 3 episodes. Not bad.
Also, so the girl who played Becky, who's not she's a grown woman now, Lydia Jordan. The same year she was in Pistol Whip, she was also in Doubt with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Meryl Streep, and Amy Adams. The same year.
Also, this isn't an acting role, but Renee Elise Goldsberry was an alumnus of Carnegie Mellon University. She got her BFA at CMU.
Oh,
So shout out.
Oh, Blue. Paul Calderon was in
Blue.
Pulp Fiction.
He was almost Jules, the character that Samuel L. Jackson would play in Pulp Fiction.
Well, that's not the same thing as being Jules, but yeah, pretty good.
But he still got to be in the movie. He got to like, he had a line in Pulp Fiction. He was almost like the main character of
That
Pulp
would've been
Fiction,
crazy.
which I feel like, I don't know if we've ever given an actor a shout out for almost being a role in a movie, but first time for everything.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole heck of a lot here.
The director of this movie would later go on to direct The Scorpion King 3, Battle for Redemption, a direct-to-video third movie in the Scorpion King series, where Victor Webster plays the Scorpion King, replacing Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Oh, and Tamara Morrison? Boba Fett is in this?
What?
Kimbo Slice? Dave Bautista?
Wait, what are we talking about?
And along with Billy Zane and Ron Perlman, The Scorpion
The
King
Scorpion
3?
King 3? Now I kind of want to see it.
Directed by the director of Pistol Whipped. We got to watch Scorpion King 3. They made a Scorpion King 4? Where did they sneak all these Scorpion King movies by without me noticing? But yeah, sure. Okay, that's everyone from Pistol Whips.
I think we need to be done talking about this movie.
Oh, wow. No, so this is one we've had before. Todd Ramsey, the editor, we've talked about him before, was also the editor for Escape from New York, The Thing, Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Oh, this guy's back.
Yeah.
Oh, he's really on some hard times.
This was basically the end of his career. He did Pistol Whipped, and then
that
5 or 6 more movies, and then was done.
That really sucks.
Well, no, his
sorry,
latest movie is in 2021, so he's only done like 5 movies between 2008 and 2021. So he's apparently still making things. His first movie, as we said a few episodes, I don't know how many episodes ago, was Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Hey, are you ready for what next week's movie is?
Sure.
Can you even imagine in your tiny little minds that aren't ready for the true depths and, extent of the scale of this giant universe we're in? Can you imagine that the next movie has an even dumber title than Pistol Whipped?
I don't see how it's possible, but here we go.
So join us next week for Kill Switch, another 2008 film starring
Kill Switch.
Stephen Frederick Seagal.
Made the same year.
Yeah, see you there. Yep, I'll see you there.
See you there. I would rather be square, but
That means one of us has to die.
Okay,
I'm recording. You have to say it, Hans.
Go on, say it.
Yeah.
All right. You ready? It's not good. It's not worth it.
No, it's 100% worth it. It's your first.
Yeah.
Come on.
Pistol Whipped? More like pistol.
Okay, I'll take it.